Kia ora, good afternoon everyone. It's good to see you all. Since we last met, we've had continued meetings with US political leadership, including yesterday the Powerful Ways and Means Committee, which was a great meeting. That's obviously responsible for US trade policy. We then went on and actually had a series of bilateral meetings, as you'll be aware of. And then we had a wonderful reception at the White House last night, which was a wonderful evening, and a good chance to build more informal relationships with the leaders as well. This morning, obviously, we met with the Secretary General, which you're aware of, and then I chaired the IP-4 meeting, which was a great opportunity in the sense of just the unity between the four countries in the Indo-Pacific, and very clearly realising a common theme coming out of this summit and this conference, which is that issues that affect us in Europe affect us in the Indo-Pacific and vice versa. We then had a great opportunity to catch up with President Biden, and then the summit proper began, and it was a great meeting to hear all the leaders around a circular table talking about their observations about where NATO should go, and obviously the link to us in the Indo-Pacific 4 as well. So, so more meetings this afternoon with some of the US political leaders still to come.
Prime Minister, just on your meeting with the Indo-Pacific 4, just on your quote, the intensifying military relationship we see between Russia and North Korea and China's role in supporting the rebuilding of Russia's industrial base demonstrates the indivisibility issues between Europe and our part of the world. Why did you bring China into it? Why did you feel that you needed to?
Well, I mean, you would have seen the NATO statement yesterday, I think, around talking about dual use, China's support of military, or China's support of Russia industrial capacity, and particularly dual-use products that are actually used for military purposes or civilian purposes. It's a conversation that I actually raised with Premier Lee when he was with us in New Zealand about how we don't want to see any country actually supporting the Russian war machine. As you've seen, we've made big commitments when I was in Japan about stepping up our engagement around monitoring UN sanctions against North Korea. The reason's very simple. We have North Korean missiles being transferred over that piece of water to Russian ships and then put out into Ukraine. And so, that's why I mean, when I say, these two theatres are very connected, that's a good example of what we're talking about.
Just to follow up on that, this is one of the most forthright you've been on China and the global stage. You worried about any sort of repercussions from them because of this?
Well, I mean, as I said to you, as I said to Premier Lee, we will cooperate where we have common interests, and we will challenge where we have differences. And successive governments have raised the same issue about dual use and support of the Russian war machine. The previous administration as well as myself. I said we'll do it publicly, we'll do it privately, we'll do it predictably and consistently. And so, that's what we'll continue to do. But, what you're seeing here is, it's a very strong, either we stand up for values in our liberal democracy or we don't. We just talk about them, or we have to follow through and back it up. And that's what you're seeing here is a unity of we have common interests, we have common values, and it's important that we actually stand up to unilateral actors that are actually challenging the rules-based system. We cannot have Ukraine lose this war. That is unacceptable. And so that is why you've seen us continue to support Ukraine, because it's about a principle that we believe in as Kiwis, and as do many other like-minded countries.
Prime Minister, how long were your respective meetings with President Biden, and what did you talk about?
Well, we had a couple of interactions last night, which were lovely, and he's got a great sense of humour, and that was in a very much in an informal setting. And then today we had a pull aside with Secretary Blinken, the President and myself as well. And really it was just an opportunity, he wanted to kind of talk about, US engagement, which we've seen across the Indo-Pacific region, certainly within the Pacific Island theatre as well. And that's been good because, we want like-minded countries, standing up for these values across the region as well. So it was, a very good meeting.
What was your impression of the President? Sorry? On that, did you have any concerns about his ability to serve another term? The photo of you and him, he looks very frail.
Well, I mean, I really enjoyed my interactions with him. I found we were able to talk about issues across the Indo-Pacific and the Pacific Islands in particular. And as I said, he's got a nice personality that comes with it, with a good personality and humour.
Do you have any concerns about his ability to serve another term?
As I said, my interactions were very positive and very engaging.
Was he sharp? Did you think he was sharp?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we talked about the Indo-Pacific, and he was well aware of. He wanted to talk to me about those issues, and I wanted to also talk to him about them, and so we had a good conversation about it.
The Finnish President didn't hesitate to say that he had no concerns, absolutely no concerns about the President's capacity to serve another term. Are you unwilling to say the same?
Well, I just said the same thing. I mean, I found, of the interactions I had, I said they were excellent interactions. He was on top of his brief. We had a positive interaction. It wasn't a consideration in my head.
Did the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky invite you to Ukraine?
No, but I know I can go at any point in time there. But the big issue there is actually making sure we've got the support package right, and that's why I am proud of what we've been doing. And we'll continue to stay open to put more support in. If that means a visit there, ultimately, I'm happy to do that. Ultimately, if it means actually making sure we deliver more financial support for humanitarian assistance and military assistance, we must do that. The message very clearly is that we cannot lose that war in Ukraine. We cannot have Russia get away with invading a sovereign nation state, and that matters much to me and to New Zealand, because we are a small country and we rely on those international rule of law and we respect sovereign nation states.
Did he request more money?
Sorry?
He has talked in the past about how critically important it is that world leaders see firsthand the profound scale of the war in Ukraine. So you would consider going over there? Yes,
I would. And the Prime Minister and I have had regular conversations since I've become Prime Minister as well. So we have a good rapport and a good relationship. And we talk, we've had good conversations in the past, as well as obviously meeting today as well.
Prime Minister, you said before that New Zealand has to act out its values rather than just talking about it. Yesterday, Jens Stoltenberg said that 2% spending of GDP should not be a target, should be a floor. Joe Biden a couple of days ago mentioned that the number of NATO nations that spend that have gone from 9 to 23. New Zealand's well off that. I mean, do we need to lift our game and get towards 2%?
Yeah, yes, we do. We do need to spend more on defence. It's important that we do that. But before we spend more money on defence, and you would have seen in this budget, we put a couple $100 million more into defence budgets. But what we're doing is we have brand new military leadership in place, as well as a new minister, a new secretary of the Ministry of Defence, as well as obviously new heads of our respective forces. All of that leadership is coming in right now. And I've asked them to come back, and there's the new leadership team to write up and develop a ground-up defence capability review that actually is a proper long-term strategy for the next 10 to 15 years, that actually then when we put money behind it, we know it's actually going to be interoperable with what's happening in Australia. It's going to be a force multiplier with our allies. But actually we've got a good strategy, and good money is going after a good strategy.
So once that's done, the next couple of years, we can expect the New Zealand government to start ramping up towards that goal.
Start increasing defence expenditure once I'm confident I've got a good strategy.
What tangibles can New Zealand just take away from this trip this week?
Look, I think it's a reminder that democracy is something you just cannot take for granted. We live in a very lovely part of the world. When you sit, if you go to, some of you were with me in Japan, some of you have been with me in Southeast Asia here today. When you're in a different part of the world, democracy gets real fast, and you don't take it for granted. And that's my point, is that actually, we need to stand up for this international rules-based system that has actually served New Zealand so incredibly well and served the world so incredibly well since World War II. And we have benefited tremendously from that. But it's under threat. And so when it is under threat, you've actually got to call it out, and you've got to stand up and make your contribution. And yes, we're a small country, but even small countries need to make sure that it matters more to us, because as I said today, in my remarks around the table, it's moved from rules to power, and that's not good for small countries.
In terms of the bilaterals that you've had, though, is there anything tangible, like, for example, change in the trading relationship or conversations about moving that along? Is there anything that you're kind of going home and being like, right, ministries, this is the stuff, this is the conversations I had and that we've got out of it?
In fairness, I've been saying this in my stand-ups each week after post-cabinet. I have wanted a hard reset of our foreign policy, and we have focused exclusively on the Indo-Pacific region. We are making sure that we are going to be a trusted, good partner to our friends and our allies. And as you've seen, I want the intensity and the urgency lifted big time. And that's why I've been out on the road. That's why Winston Peters has been out on the road. That's why Judith Collins is out participating in seminars and things like Shangri-La and others. And you've seen Todd McClay out there. So the four of us meet regularly to work out how we are collectively lifting the intensity of those bilateral relationships as well as those multilateral ones.
And just in talking with the French President, what assurances have you got around what has been going on in New Caledonia and how that situation is at the moment? Yeah,
look, I reiterated our need that, we really want to see a Pacific solution to a Pacific challenge, that actually the centrality of the Pacific Island Forum is important, and it remains a vehicle that could be very useful as they negotiate and talk through next steps. Ultimately, it's a decision for the people of New Caledonia and obviously France. But I talked about the importance of actually wanting to see stability there, and he reassured me that that's what he's wanting as well. So we talked about the Pacific Island Forum has become a central organising group that could be very helpful as he goes through that, and I was offering that up to him.
The clue is kind of in the name North Atlantic, but do you see any scope for New Zealand potentially joining NATO? Is that something that we could do?
No, that's not something that would happen. But what we're indicating with the IP-4 is that, and I think across the Indo-Pacific region, we have potential flashpoints. A Ukraine could happen in East Asia. When you think about the situations we have with North Korea, firing missiles over Korean and Japanese airspace, when you think about the challenges in the Second Thomas Shoal Reef with respect to the Philippines and the behaviour that we saw from China there, when you think about Taiwan, we have potential flashpoints in our region that Ukraine could happen in our region, and that's why what matters here, there in Europe and across the Atlantic and the Euro-Atlantic, actually has impact back in the Indo-Pacific and vice versa.
Yeah, and just looking ahead to tomorrow, you're heading to San Francisco. Are you anticipating meeting with Gavin Newsom?
Yes, I will be.
You will be meeting with him. What sort of things will you be raising in those conversations?
Well, look, California is the 5th biggest economy in the world, and there's a huge opportunity for us to collaborate more, particularly around climate and also around renewable energy, but also in technology spaces as well. It'll also be a good opportunity to meet with, I think, 20+ investors to talk about how we can attract more foreign direct investment to New Zealand, which we desperately need. We're one of the countries in the OECD that has the lowest rates of foreign direct investment, and it's really important because we need access to that capital to be able to build out our infrastructure, to grow our companies, and we need those partnerships in place. So, I'm looking forward to that conversation.
How do you feel about the timing of that? Because Gavin Newsom sits atop most of the lists as potential successor to Joe Biden. How do you feel about the timing of your meeting?
Look, it's important that I have a top-to-top relationship, as I've said to you, a broad and deep relationship across the US political system. And the US political system, as you're probably getting a sense of, and having lived here for 6 years, is a very large system, and it has many layers to it of senior officials, people on both sides of the aisle, and it's important that as a New Zealand Prime Minister, I don't just rely on a leader-to-leader relationship, that I expect us to have relationships across the whole of the system, and that's what we've been working hard at over the last few days.
By President Zelensky's own calculations, the $83 million that we've contributed in military aid to Ukraine, that would cover not even 10, 11 days of the Ukraine war. The war's been raging for 869 days. We haven't done enough, have we?
Well, as I said, we're open to continuing to do more, and you've seen us and you saw me in opposition express very strongly my support for the President and also for Ukraine. He and I have spoken several times. We have a good relationship, a good affinity. He knows to ask for things if he needs things, and we will continue to spend more money. Let's be clear about it. We want Ukraine. Ukraine must win this war. It is non-negotiable. It has to be done.
More money on direct military aid.
Absolutely. More money on direct military aid, more money on certainly on humanitarian assistance. You've seen that we've put money into the drone program. There's a whole bunch of, there's 4 key initiatives that we're working on as an IP-4 in particular in our support of Ukraine. I just want to underscore really clearly, yes, they're fighting a battle in Ukraine for their own country, but they're actually fighting for democracy, and that's something we believe in, and we've talked about that in New Zealand. It's in our DNA, and it's appropriate that, I know we're a small country and we don't have the budgets and the wherewithal of many other medium and larger sized countries, but it's important in a principle sense that we make a contribution as well.
Last question, please.
Sorry, you had the first meeting with Korea's president, I believe, today as part of IP-4.
Yes.
Korea's obviously rapidly becoming a big trading partner with us. What's your hope for that relationship going forward in the years to come?
Well, again, it's a key relationship, as I've said, economically, but also in a security sense as well. And so I look forward to visiting Korea in the short term.
What did you talk to Larry Fink about yesterday?
Again, about investment. He's one of the world's largest investors. I wanted him to know that New Zealand was open to investment, that we had a lot of investable opportunities coming with respect to infrastructure projects and other things as well. And so it was, I know a number of people from BlackRock in my former life, and it was important to have that relationship there as well.
Did you get an update on how their current investment package is going?
No, I didn't. I was just talking to him about our plans going forward and what we were wanting to do to make sure that we were making it easier to get things done in New Zealand, which is one of the challenges for offshore investors, that we're quite slow, and that's why we're doing our fast-track consenting one-stop process. Equally, that we're going to be opening up to new funding and financing tools so that we can actually get this infrastructure built and stop talking about it. And the third thing is that, we'll go through a process of revisiting our overseas investment pieces as well to make that more attractive for investors. But, when you have trillions and billions of dollars sitting in sovereign wealth funds all around the world and pension schemes that is looking for homes to invest it in. New Zealand, we need to do the sales job as much as the marketing job. We need to be able to get the sale and actually get investment into our country.
You said too in your bilateral with Spain, you said to Sanchez that you probably wouldn't be going over for the America's Cup. Why not?
Well, I want to focus on, I've got to fix the country, and we've got to turn New Zealand around, and the last thing the New Zealand people need to see is me at the Olympics or me at the America's Cup.
Are you going to tell Team New Zealand that tomorrow?
Sorry?
Are you going to tell Team New Zealand you're going to be on a show tomorrow?
Well, I've been, no, they'll know I'm not going, because I go somewhere where I can do business, and I can actually build the relationships that actually are acting out in New Zealand's national interests, and so that's important.
People at the America's Cup.
I'm sure there is, but I won't be there.
Did Anthony Albanese miss a beat by not being in the IP-4 meeting today?
Well, look, it was a very constructive meeting. Richard Miles is a great guy and someone that I've got huge respect for as well, and is very knowledgeable about foreign affairs as well. Kevin Rudd was obviously their ambassador that was here as well. That's ultimately a decision for the Australians, not for me.
Prime Minister, you broke bread last night, and then you've sat around the table with a bunch of people, some of whom share a border with a hostile power. Did the war become a lot more real for you over the last couple of days?
I have to be honest, since coming to power, I've seen it in quite a clear-eyed way, and that's why I've been talking about the Indo-Pacific region, why we need to step up our intensity and our urgency in these relationships. As I said, some of you would have been with me in Japan. I said up there it's a tough neighbourhood, when you've got Russia, North Korea, Taiwan, lots of tension in the South China Sea, West Philippine Sea. You've got a lot of things going on. And sometimes in New Zealand it's easy for us because we don't have those threats sitting around us. And I think it's a good reminder. I've seen that very clearly, thinking about the region and thinking about the state of geopolitics and New Zealand's place in that world. I think we've got a lot to offer. That's why I want to participate, and that's why I want us to engage. And so whether it's in Japan and Korea, whether it's actually up here, you can see very clearly, as I said, democracy gets real.
Okay, everyone, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
What did you have to eat, by the way, at the banquet? What did they feed
Sorry?
you? What did they feed you at the banquet?
It was surf and turf,
Yeah.
and a wonderful dessert made by a pastry chef who was there last night. She'd served in the White House kitchen, I think, for 30 years or something. So it was great. A little bit, yeah.